Hey Ice and Fire Nerds, it's me, your Rican on the Wall, Jaime of House Hernandez, and today we're going to be reviewing Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 6, Beyond the Wall. This episode is hands down my favorite episode of the season so far. It was action-packed, full of great storytelling, and the special effects were amazing. That being said, let's jump right in. The first scene takes us north of the wall where Dan and Dave's version of the Suicide Squad are. Jon and company are hiking through the north in search of a white. Tormund mentions that he's finally happy he's back in the north again where the air smells clean. God, I hope this man doesn't die soon. He's absolutely hilarious. Jon apologized to Jorah for how his father passed away and swore to him that everyone who betrayed his father saw justice. Jorah was disappointed because he knew his father would have died for those men, and they killed him anyways. Then the conversation switched to Ned, and how Jon said that Ned was the greatest man he ever knew. Jorah said that Ned wanted him dead for selling poachers to slavery, and he was right to want him dead. The conversation goes back and forth, and Jon admits to Jorah that he's glad that Ned never caught him. They stand over to the side where Jon decides to hand him back Longclaw. He said Longclaw was in his family for centuries and it belongs to him since he's the rightful heir to House Mormont. Jorah declined it, saying he dishonored his house, and it should be Jon's, since his father chose him to have it, and may it serve him well and his children in the future. Can we say a little foreshadowing here of maybe Jon and Dany having a little baby? Next scene, we're back at Winterfell where Arya and Sansa are on a balcony overlooking the archery field. Arya tells Sansa a story about when she was younger, and one day Sir Roderick and Bran were shooting arrows. When they had left, Bran had left his bow on the ground with one arrow. Arya saw that no one was around and decided to shoot. She mentions how it may have taken about 20-30 times to shoot at the mark, until she finally hit the bullseye. When she finally hit the bullseye, she sees Ned looking up, clapping at her. At that moment, she realized what she was doing wasn't wrong, but the rules were. And then she confronts Sansa about how she helped kill Ned. Sansa was shocked by the statement. Then Arya pulled out the letter she wrote to Robb when she was a prisoner of the Lannisters. They argued back and forth, and Arya said she would have rather died than write a letter like this. This is really starting to stress me out a little. I think Arya just doesn't see that Sansa's not wired like her, and she did what she needed to do to survive. Sansa sees things just one way, Arya sees things another, and I think this may come to a head. Let's hope not, because I love both of these characters and I don't want one to off the other. Next we see ourselves north of the wall with my favorite wildling Ginger, Tormund Giantsbane. He's trying to get to know the group a bit better, and this time around he's messing with the Hound. The Hound basically tells him to fuck off, and Tormund asks him does he hate wildlings. The Hound responds, I don't hate wildlings, I just hate gingers. And Tormund responds, well, gingers are just kissed by fire, just like him. The Hound doesn't like that too much. They continue hiking when the subject of Brienne comes up, and how Tormund wants to make giant babies with Brienne. The Hound looks at him like he's crazy as hell, which he is. Tormund is truly the comic relief of this group, and the more I see of him, the better this show is. The scene shifts south to Dragonstone, where Daenerys and Tyrion are sitting patiently, or should I say impatiently, waiting on news from Jon. Dany discusses with Tyrion how she appreciates he's not a hero, and he doesn't do stupid things like the men before her have. Tyrion then explains that all the men, including Jon Snow, do it because they love her. Dany is taken back by this because she doesn't think Jon Snow loves her, but Tyrion confirms it. Then they discuss the plans of what will happen when they arrive at King's Landing. Dany is worried that Cersei will be planning a trap, and Tyrion's assuring her that nothing like that will happen as long as he keeps her in check. This frustrates Dany a little bit, but Tyrion keeps his cool and explains that sometimes you need to put yourself in the shoes of your enemies to understand them and know how to beat them. Then the discussion of the line of succession comes up, where Dany doesn't want to have any part of it. Tyrion mentions that she said before that she cannot have any children, so the line of succession must be discussed. Dany then says, we will discuss the line of succession when I win the Iron Throne. Once again, this is the show telling us that Dany can't have any kids. The scene before this where Jon and Jorah are having the discussion of Longclaw and how his sword should be passed down to his children. And now the scene where Dany's talking to Tyrion saying, I can't have any children. This is the show telling me that something's going to happen between them and a baby is coming soon. Next, for one of the more wild scenes, our crew is up north in the middle of a blizzard. They see in a distance a polar bear. Gendry looks and asks a question, do polar bear have blue eyes? And I'm not going to lie, guys, I was super startled when that polar bear jumped out and killed one of those wildling guys. The polar bear killed several of the wildlings and gravely injured Thoros of Myr. Beric cauterized his wounds with the flaming sword, and then the crew continued to head back north. Then we're back up north where we have Littlefinger and Sansa discussing what to do about Arya. Baelish is playing coy pretending he has no idea how Arya got the letter, when we all know better. Sansa is extremely worried that the Northern Lords will abandon her once they find out what's in the contents of that letter. Littlefinger then suggests that maybe she should use Brienne to handle the problem for her, since Brienne is sworn to protect all the Stark children, and Arya's action would endanger Sansa gravely. Sansa is left contemplating the idea, and I don't like the look on her face. Then we're back up north where we see a bunch of whites led by a white lieutenant come across a fire in an open field. As they inspect the fire, Jon and company come crashing in. They start attacking the whites, and Jon goes one-on-one with the White Walker. Once Jon kills the White Walker, about 90% of the whites just fall to the ground. There was one left alive, however, and they tied him down, but not before it got to scream and call for the Night King. A storm starts approaching, and Jon tells Gendry to head back to Eastwatch and send a raven for Dany. Gendry refuses to leave, but Jon insists since he's the fastest. Gendry is told to leave his hammer behind since it will slow him down, and then Gendry does his best Forrest Gump impression and starts heading back south. Gendry arrives at the wall and he collapses. He has no strength left. Davos is asking him where the rest of the crew is. Gendry begs for him to send Raven south. While the Raven is heading south, the group is surrounded while they're trapped on an island that's stuck in the middle of a frozen lake. During the night, Thoros of Myr passes away from his injuries. Meanwhile, Dragonstone, Dany receives the Raven from Eastwatch and decides to head north. Tyrion implores her not to go because they knew the risk and they can't afford to lose her. Dany says what kind of queen would she be if she were just to leave him there to die, so she heads north anyways. She hops on Drogon, and Viserion and Rhaegal follow as they head north to save Jon and company. Then we're back with our heroes up north. The Hound decides to throw a rock across the pond and we see it slide across the ice. The whites notice it as well. They then begin to walk towards the group. Next thing you know, the group is surrounded by whites. They're fighting them off as best as they can, but they're beginning to become overwhelmed. Jon orders the group to fall back, and as they do, they're getting more and more surrounded. Things are looking helpless, but right in the last minute, Dany comes to save the day. Her and her 3 dragons start to lay fire to the ice and start melting it, thus drowning most of the whites and burning the rest. Dany then lands on the rock island and tells everyone to hop on Drogon. Jon stays back to fend off the White Walkers while everyone is climbing it. During this, the Night King grabs an ice spear and hurls it into the air, striking Viserion in the neck. Everyone looks terrified as they see Viserion crashing to the ground. Drogon is seen screaming as Viserion comes crashing to the ground. Dany can't believe what she's seeing as one of her children just got killed. Next we see Jon staring down the Night King as the Night King grabs another spear. As Jon is trying to make his way back to Drogon, he's tackled into the ice and falls into the water. Dany waits for a few moments and decides she can't wait any longer. She leaves Jon behind as she flies off with the group and Drogon. The Night King throws one more spear but misses. As the Night King and his army walk away, we see a frozen Jon Snow pulling himself out of the water. As he struggles to head back towards Eastwatch, a group of whites see him walking. They start charging him and Jon gets ready to make his last stand. And then when things are looking its most bleak, Uncle Benjen arrives to save the day. He kills several whites with his flaming ball and chain. When he arrives to Jon, he identifies himself. This is the first time that Jon's got to see his Uncle Benjen since Season 1. Uncle Benjen puts him on the horse and tells him to ride through the ridge. Jon doesn't want to leave him, but he respects Uncle Benjen's decision. As we see Jon riding off, Uncle Benjen makes his last stand to fend off the whites to let Jon get away. Then we're back at Eastwatch, where the Hound is loading up the whites to be taken to King's Landing. The Hound says his goodbyes to Tormund and Beric and hopes he never sees him again, but something's telling me that's not going to happen. The scene then shifts up to the top of the wall where Dany's overlooking the north. She's hoping against hope that Jon somehow made it. And just as she turns away, she hears a horn announcing a rider. She looks over once more and she sees Jon barely alive riding towards the wall. Then we switch back to Winterfell where Sansa is snooping through Arya's room. She opens up a bag where she sees where Arya has her faces hidden. Sansa is startled when Arya speaks. She demands that Arya tells her what these things are. Arya then explains to her what it is to be a faceless man and how she got her first face. This clearly terrifies Sansa, but Arya doesn't hurt her. Arya just hands her the cat's paw blade, leaving Sansa terrified. Then we're back with Dany on her boat sitting by Jon's side. Jon wakes up and notices her. He apologizes for Viserion and wish he never went. She then stops him and tells him she's not sorry. She's glad she did go, because you have to see to believe. She then explains to Jon that the dragons are her children, and she cannot have any kids. And she hopes that Jon understands. Jon nods his head. Dany then vows that she will defeat the Night King with him. Jon, pleased to hear that, says that he would bend the knee if he could, but he's in too much pain. You can see the joy on Dany's face. Dany then asks, what about Jon's people? Jon then says, once his people see her for who she truly is, they will understand. This is the third mention of children between these two. At the beginning, once again, with Jorah talking to Jon, and then again with Dany at Dragonstone speaking with Tyrion, and now a third time here. Once again, I think a Targaryen baby is going to be coming in Season 8. I don't know what role, if any, it will have to play in the series, but it's going to happen. The last scene is back up north where the Army of the Dead is pulling something out of the water with giant chains. As they continue to pull, we see a dead Viserion come out of the water. The Night King approaches Viserion and puts his hand on Viserion's head. A few moments later, Viserion opens his eyes and they're blue. Now the Night King has his own dragon, and the War of the Dawn can truly begin. This episode's definitely in my top 5 of all-time favorite episodes. And I can't wait for the season finale later on today. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate all your support. Stay tuned for later this week. I'll have my Game of Thrones season finale episode review up, The Dragon and the Wolf. Once again, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button below if you haven't subscribed already. If you have any questions or anything like that, put it in the comments section. I'll try to do some Q&A videos during the off season as well as some other theory videos. Once again, thank you so much and have a great day.